guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic.
Hanabi studied herself in the mirror and mentally patted herself on the back. She'd managed to assemble an outfit that was cute, sexy, and innocent in 15 minutes, beating her previous record by a whole hour. She contemplated putting on lipstick but decided against it. If someone spotted her when she was sneaking out, and saw the lipstick, they'd assume things and start more rumors. Hanabi glanced at the clock. 6:30. She had 30 minutes to sneak out the estate and get to Naruto. She'd shredded the note and burned the pieces. She had no need for it as she'd memorized the directions. With one last look in the mirror, she slid her foot in her shoes and slipped on a black cloak. The cloak was necessary. She'd never make it out of the estate if anyone saw what she was wearing. Grabbing her ninja gear, Hanabi locked her door and jumped out her window. Hinata made her way down the hall. She had an appointment at 7. The success of her plan to take over the estate depended heavily on the outcome of this meeting. Hinata scowled. If her father hadn't renounced her as heir, she wouldn't have to go through all this trouble. That and if Hanabi wasn't born. Hinata entered the dining room and was shocked to see that the room was empty save for a few servants. Usually her father was seated at the head of the old cedar table, Hanabi next to him on one side, Neji on the other side, and Hinata opposite Hiyashi with a few elders scattered between them. But today the table stood lonely. Good evening, Miss Hinata. Will you be having dinner tonight? Oh, good evening, Mameha Ba-sama. Hinata said, bowing to the cook. How are you? I'm fine. Mameha replied, taking a seat. Just old and tired. Where is everybody? Hinata asked, taking a seat next to her surrogate grandmother. Mameha sighed. Well, Hiyashi is having a secret emergency meeting with the council. Mameha said, rolling her eyes. She knew any and everything that went on in the estate. So he and some of the other elders are skipping dinner. Neji's with Tenten, so he's out. And one of the guards just told me little Hanabi sneaked out of the estate. Hinata frowned at this. She couldn't risk having Hanabi follow her like last time. She sneaked out. Yep. Mameha said, nodding her head. Said she looked suspicious, moving fast and sticking to the shadows, and followed her to the edge of the branch family. Mameha smiled. He also said he blinked and she vanished. He searched the entire estate and couldn't find her. Nobody saw or heard her. She's getting craftier these days. Hanabi, moving with stealth. Hinata asked herself, not quite believing it. Mameha's smile widened and her eyes twinkled. I asked myself the same question. When has little Hanabi ever wanted to be unnoticed? I smell a scandal brewing. Mameha stood up. I presume you're skipping dinner also. Hinata sent her a weak smile. I'm very sorry, Mameha Ba-sama, but I've got a mission tonight. Mameha smirked and narrowed her eyes suggestively at Hinata. I didn't see any of the Hokage's messenger nin today. It's a personal mission. Mameha's smirk widened into a smile. Well, have fun and try not to wear yourself out too much now. She wiggled her eyebrows. Hinata blushed at Mameha's innuendo. You can send my dinner to my room, please. I'll be back around 11. Hinata said. Oh sure, that's no problem. I'll even stay up and warm it up for you. I'm quite sure you'll be starving after your mission. Hinata gave Mameha a half bow and dashed out of the room, leaving Mameha cackling about how red her face was. Somewhere on the Hyuga estate. I have reason to believe that Hinata may try to eliminate Hanabi to ensure herself the position of clan leader. Hiyashi told the occupants in the dimly lit room. He sat at the head of a small oval table. Because of poor lighting, everybody's face was hidden by shadows, except Hiyashi, who sat directly underneath the only working light bulb. What do you propose we do about this threat? One of the shadowed faces asked. Confine her to the estate. I think it will be in our best interest if we had her shadowed, for protection. Hiyashi said, patiently waiting for their feedback. Why not confine her? An elderly female voice asked. Hiyashi was well prepared to back up his motion. We can't confine her because, 1. Hinata will get suspicious, and 2. It will be easier for Hinata to dispose of Hanabi if she's closer to her and can predict where she will be. It's been proven that Hanabi can be read like clockwork if restricted to a small area, so I need not go on. What's to stop Hinata from attacking her out of the estate? The same lady asked again. Wouldn't allowing Hanabi to roam freely as she does now make it easier for Hinata? Actually, it wouldn't. Hiyashi started, facing the woman. If you hadn't noticed, Hanabi draws attention to herself, even when she doesn't want it. What does that have to do with anything? Hiyashi almost cursed. How could someone so wise be so dense? It means that people are always watching her. She can't do anything without me knowing it. Really now? Then you should know by now that she sneaked off the estate. An old guy said. This gave rise to an outbreak of muttering and silent questioning. Hiyashi's jaw tensed. As far as he knew, Hanabi was sulking in her room. He was going to have a little talk with his daughter, whenever he caught up with her. No, I was not aware. The old guy smirked. So much for knowing her every move. Hiyashi tightened his fist under the table. How dare the council mock him? Didn't they know he had the power to kill them all? Hiyashi smirked. He'll show them. Since you're so informed, can you tell us where she's headed? Hiyashi asked the old man. I was only told that she got off the estate unnoticed. The old man, sensing that Hiyashi was goading him, asked, Are you sure you are capable of handling Hanabi? This question sent everyone's undivided attention to Hiyashi. Hiyashi smiled at the old man. Of course I'm capable. Unlike you, I don't need to place spies around her and ingratiate people to find out what she's done. You see, I'm so beyond you. I already know where she's headed and what she is going to do. The real question is, are you capable of handling the estate's security? What are you talking about? The old man narrowed his eyes at Hiyashi, who just smugly smirked. Hiyashi, for dramatic effects, folded his hands on the table and said, How is it that two people, at different times, entered the estate, passed through the branch family, entered the main family, wrote notes and left it in both my daughter's rooms, and had enough time to go down to the kitchen to have a snack? And all of this went unnoticed by the guards. How did these two people breach security without you knowing? Do you care to explain? The old man lifted his chin proudly in the air, when everyone turned to look at him. He could feel the questions and reprimands silently being thrown at him. He'd be damned if he let Hiyashi destroy the little power and dignity he had left. If these people supposedly got past my security, how then do you know about them? Hiyashi, satisfied he put the old man in his place, leaned back in his chair and said, Because most of the time my Byakugan is always on. And I recognized two distinct chakra bodies, different than the average Hyuga. I didn't pursue it any further because I assumed you let them in for some purpose. The old man, who was the former clan leader, looked Hiyashi in the eye. How is this relevant to the topic at hand? Hiyashi sat back up. It was time to end this meeting. He was missing dinner and Mameha's passion fruit pie was on the menu. It's relevant because if Hinata had sent someone to assassinate Hanabi, they would have succeeded. They'd have slipped right through our so-called impenetrable security. He has a point. An old lady said, We need to wrap this up. I second Hiyashi's motion, have Hanabi shadowed. Hiyashi smirked as the majority of the council agreed with his decision. They always did what he want in the end. Do you really think Hinata would assassinate Hanabi? A cheery old voice asked. Hiyashi thought for a second, remembered the conversation he and Hinata shared in the hospital. I wouldn't put it below her. Hiyashi said grimly. This meeting is adjourned. With this said, everyone, except Hiyashi, faded into the shadows and disappeared until the room was empty. Hiyashi balanced his chin on the palm of his hand and stared at a portrait of Hinata hanging on the wall opposite him. Exactly what are you planning, oh daughter of mine? Somewhere in Konoha, Hanabi stood in front of a giant iron gate that was shaped like a giant spiral. She glanced around and saw nothing but trees and moonlight. The only thing she saw through the gate was a wall of trees. The closest house was at least 2 miles away, if she remembered correctly. This was one part of Konoha she'd never seen in her life, and she'd seen plenty. If something was to happen to her, she figured it'd be about a week before anyone found her body. You're kinda late. The kunai came so fast that Naruto barely had time to catch it, much less dodge it. Paranoid much? Naruto asked, holding the kunai between 2 fingers. He grinned and stood next to her. A small trickle of blood ran down the back of his hand, and glistened in the moonlight. Hanabi flushed, spotted the trickle of blood on his hand. What the hell? Why did you catch it? Naruto stared at the blood on his hand and wiped it on his shirt. It's just a little scratch. Besides, you threw it too fast for me to dodge it. He held the kunai out to her. Hanabi grimaced. Ah, throw it away. I don't need it. Naruto shrugged and pocketed it. This wasn't too hard to find, was it? Naruto asked, while opening the gate. It opened with a little creak. Naruto turned, motioned for her to come, and stopped in his tracks. Hanabi walked through the gate, which opened to reveal a small clearing. What? She said when she noticed Naruto staring at her. Any particular reason you're wearing a cloak on such a humid night as this? Naruto asked. She'd almost forgotten she was wearing the cloak. She smirked at him and dramatically took off the cloak, and flung it somewhere on the side. Wow, was all Naruto could say. He needed a few moments to take it all in. The first thing he noticed were the legs, which were encased with fashionably thin, off-white socks that stopped just on top of her knee. Then there was the mini black skirt that stopped barely to her mid-thigh. This was then followed by a white shirt with dark red letters that said, "Caution." Her ensemble was completed with a black mini long-sleeve jacket that stopped mid-stomach. She'd given herself a few bangs and pulled the rest of her hair into a ponytail that stopped to the middle of her back. This was too much for him to bear. He scanned her again and felt the blood in his head migrate south. He was going to have a hard time resisting the urge to repeat what happened earlier in the hospital. Hanabi gnawed on her lip when she realized Naruto was still staring at her. Maybe this wasn't the best thing she should have worn. What? Hanabi asked, slightly embarrassed. It doesn't look good. If he said yes, she was going to go bury herself in small dark hole. Naruto turned, beckoned her to follow, and set off down a path of night daisies. Hanabi, mortified that he didn't answer, followed him. Hey, she started, poking him in his back. Don't ignore me. Answer the question. In response, Naruto quickened his pace, and Hanabi pursued. Their shadows danced about them as they traversed the path. It sloped up a hill through a field of moonflowers and giant willow, cedar, and oak tress, leading to a cottage completely covered in vines and leaves. Moonlight filtered through the broad leaves of the trees, casting ominous shadows about the place. Hanabi suddenly stopped in the middle of the field. The sudden beauty of the field captivated her. So pretty, I know, right? Naruto whispered, suddenly behind her. She didn't even hear when he moved, if he moved at all. She turned to face him and he was staring at her with those deep blue eyes. A vivid memory of one of her fantasies flashed in her mind, and she couldn't help but blush. The wind picked up and blew a few stray clouds, covering the moon. Hanabi looked into his eyes again. Instead of the calm and steady behind them, she saw a maelstrom, a struggle, and she became cautious. Hanabi, Naruto said in a desperate tone. What? She whispered. The calm and steady was no longer there. Instead, there was something she couldn't recognize: anger, lust, frustration. No, a combination, maybe. I really like you. He took a step towards her and she took a step in retreat. Her heart was fluttering. She was so not prepared for that. Those simple words could mean a lot. He took another step towards her and she took another step back. He smirked when her back hit the cool trunk of the giant cedar tree. Hanabi's heartbeat increased. She didn't like the way her body was responding to the way he was looking at her. Who was she kidding? She liked it. She liked it a whole damn lot. Heck, She wanted him to do more than just look at her. He placed his hand on her cheek. It was warm against his hand, and tense. As if he was fighting to restrain his hand from pinning to her the tree. Her heart started beating at impossible speeds when the image of Naruto pinning her to the tree flashed in her mind. Her body wanted to take the next instinctive step, but the logic and common sense in her mind was fighting against it, and losing badly. It was like mentally resisting someone who was physically pulling you away. When he lightly brushed a thumb over her cheek, the common sense and logic in her mind was TKO'd. He gave her a teasing feather kiss, provoking unstable waters. She let out a frustrated growl, wrapped her hands around his neck and pulled him to her. Looking into his eyes, she kissed him, hard. Naruto responded by cupping his hand behind her neck, angling her mouth, effectively deepening the kiss. And then they made hot, passionate sekihan on the forest floor. The end of the story. I'm only kidding, I couldn't resist putting it there. Closing parenthesis. Naruto ran his hands down her back, and she ran his hands up his shirt. He pressed himself harder to her and she responded by kissing him harder. It wasn't until she patted his back insistently that they broke apart for some air and much needed control. Well, Naruto gasped. Hanabi looked at him incredulously. Never in her life had anyone kissed her like that before. It's a good thing that she ran out of air, she thought, or they would have done naughty things on the floor. She couldn't believe that just happened. Wow, Hanabi stated, catching her breath. She looked up at Naruto. She'd slid to the floor sometime after the kiss. He looked even more appealing to her now that she'd messed up his hair a bit. She rubbed her temples, in an attempt to clear her mind and settle her nerves. I so want to kiss you again, Naruto started, making her feel all tingly inside. But I don't think that's so wise right now. Hanabi slowly stood up, nodding her head in agreement. I can't believe that just happened. She stated. I know, right? Naruto chuckled. He was more attracted to her now than ever. He studied her. Her hair was ruffled and her face was flushed. Threw in the puffy lips and the way she was provocatively leaning against the tree, and he might not be able to restrain himself. You're a poor liar. What? Hanabi asked. That particular statement yanked her out of her thoughts and back to reality. What did you just say? Naruto smiled wickedly. He'd successfully distracted them both from thinking too hard about what just happened, and he was about to irritate Hanabi. For some odd reason, he'd grown to like irritating her. It made her more appealing to him. I said you are a poor liar, and the moment ago just proved it. Naruto said, walking back up to the cabin. What the hell are you talking about? Hanabi asked, flummoxed. Naruto stopped suddenly and turned around to face her. I distinctly remember at the beginning of this story, he pointed a finger at her. You stating that I was ugly and repulsive. And now you're attracted to me. Hanabi blushed and raised her chin defiantly in the air. I haven't the slightest idea what you are talking about. It's okay, Naruto said, grinning. Don't try to deny it. Mortified, Hanabi shouted. Just shut up. What the hell did you bring me here for anyway? I could be doing other important stuff right now. Naruto smirked. Then why the hell did you come? She was getting pissed but she wasn't angry yet. Hanabi paused. No witty remark was popping in her head. Then what the hell did you bring me here for? Use your empty head. Naruto smirked when her eyes narrowed and she started poking him painfully in the chest. Maybe it wasn't so wise to have an angry Hyuga poking him in the chest. Listen here, idiot, Hanabi started. She didn't get far in her rant because Naruto kissed her and tripped her, and in a reflex action, she grabbed onto him and he fell on top of her. Hanabi stared up at him. She'd kind of gotten used to his weight on top of her. Why are you always on top? Hanabi asked, grinning. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't stay mad at him. Well, a familiar voice stated. Why are you always on top, Naruto? Naruto and Hanabi groaned in unison. And to make things even worse, another voice asked. So the rumors were true. Hanabi sighed. She'd bet her whole right arm her that she and Naruto were going to be the hot topic tomorrow. They might even mention them on Konoha Entertainment. Naruto stayed where he was, on top of Hanabi. He lowered his head to one side of her head and whispered, "Maybe if we keep still, or pretend to be dead, they'll go away." Hanabi snickered. "Get off of me." She pushed him off and stood up. She faced her tormentor. "Why is it that you are conveniently popping up?" Kakashi, grinning devilishly under his mask, feigned innocence. "I really don't know what you're talking about. I just happened." Naruto cut him off. "You just happen to be everywhere we are." "Naruto, how come you didn't tell me?" Sakura asked, materializing from behind Kakashi. Naruto groaned. The entire village was bound to know now that Sakura saw them together. He turned to face her. "What are you doing out here in the middle of nowhere? We could ask you the same thing." Kakashi countered, sliding the tiny camera he had in his back pocket. "Isn't it obvious?" Hanabi asked in a tone that implied Sakura was stupid. "For your information," Kakashi started, "we were on patrol when we just happened to hear some unusual sounds coming from this vicinity, wherein we proceeded to investigate, only to find you two. I need not go on. Don't you think it's about time you come up with something original?" Hanabi asked. Kakashi's eyebrow shot up in surprise. This was the first time someone said that to him. It was disconcerting. "Why are you two here?" Naruto asked, a wicked smile on his face. He wiggled his eyebrows at Hanabi, who immediately understood his innuendo, and rolled her eyes. "Here, in this nice secluded area, miles away from the nearest rural house, where no one would even think to look for anyone." Sakura eyed him suspiciously. "What are you hinting at?" "Don't act like you're stupid," Hanabi stated. She turned her gaze to Kakashi, who suddenly took avid interest at the moon. Kakashi awkwardly cleared his throat when he realized what Naruto and Hanabi were hinting at. "Clearly you don't suggest that." He motioned a hand between him and Sakura. Sakura gasped. "How dare you suggest such a thing?" "It's okay," Naruto chided. "Well, if not that, then what?" "We were, Sakura stammered. "Stalking us," Hanabi offered. "It's the only other reason why you two would be here." Kakashi came to Sakura's rescue by saying, "How dare you imply that we were stalking you? Your superfluous insinuations has me flummoxed, and has drastically impaired my egotistical subconscious." Naruto scratched his head. Did anyone understand a word he just said? He turned to Sakura. "You want to translate for me?" Kakashi continued. "I am also ecstatically appalled that you would even indicate that Sakura and I are in any sort of scandalous behavior. Shame on you." Sakura and Hanabi's face were a burrow of concentration, trying to decipher what the Junin had just stated. They gave up. Hanabi faced Kakashi. "Back to what we were asking. Why are you stalking us? Why are you persistently implying that we are negatively pursuing you in your spouse's recreational epic?" Kakashi replied. Naruto clutched at his temples, and said, "Shut up with the big words already and answer the question. I ought to tell Granny that you've been stalking us." Kakashi was prepared for that, and so countered, "And I could mention certain things to certain people." Hanabi tensed. However, Kakashi continued, "If you do me a tiny little minuscule fav." "Ooh no," Hanabi interrupted, "you're not pulling that blackmail crap again." "You don't have a choice," Kakashi stated, "seeing as how I have a witness." "Right, Sakura." She pretended to study a nearby flower with unrelenting interest. Naruto came to Hanabi's rescue by saying, "Well, if you mention a few things to certain people, we'll just mention to certain people that Tsunade's apprentice, and the famous copy ninja Kakashi, meet on a constant basis to have passionate, wild, bestiality, S&M orientated gatherings in Sakura's office." Sakura sent him an incredulous look. Who the hell, in their right mind, would believe that? Hanabi bit her tongue as a picture of what Naruto just said formed in her mind. She did not know what it said of her that she found it disturbing and exponentially funny. Iruka-sensei would. And he could convince anybody. Naruto answered her. Kakashi closed the book he was reading at Naruto's comment. He turned to Sakura. The sad thing is, he's right. If anyone started to believe that he'd have to leave the village. Sakura lowered her head. She could imagine what the staff at the hospital would say behind her back. She'd never live it down. And any attempt of denial would only strengthen people's belief in the rumor. Fine, Kakashi stated. You win for now. However, I wonder what her father would say. He nodded towards Hanabi. If he learned about what she was doing. I just might let something slip. Hanabi tensed at what he said. She suddenly remembered the heap of trouble she was in with her father, which also reminded her that he usually did late checkups to see if she was in her room or not. If he missed her tonight, she was definitely going in the hole. Hanabi looked up. The moon was almost above her head. This meant she had to go, if she wanted to be home before curfew. She frowned. She was really enjoying herself. She faced Naruto. Idiot, I have to go. She turned and started back down the path. Naruto turned to Kakashi and Sakura. This isn't over. Wait till tomorrow. Hanabi, wait up. He jogged after her. When they disappeared behind the trees, Sakura whirled to face Kakashi. Why didn't you say something? Now they think that. She couldn't even bring herself to say it. Kakashi shrugged. He still couldn't believe that she'd told him to come up with something original. That really damaged his ego. As far as he was concerned, he came up with the most original excuses ever. He'd have to go home and meditate over this. I don't know why I let you talk me into following them. Sakura continued. He pulled the camera out of his pocket and waved it in front of her face. Because, dear child, one of these goes for 30,000 ryo. Sakura frowned. She almost felt guilty for selling out her closest friend. Then again, 30,000 ryo for a picture was hard to turn down. She suddenly thought of something. Kakashi-sensei, you think if we get a video of them, they'll pay more? Kakashi paused. Now there was a thought. I like your way of thinking. In fact, meet me at the training grounds tomorrow, around 4. He just remembered there was something he had to take care of. If he didn't, Jiraiya would strangle him. He disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Sakura followed suit. By the time Naruto caught up with Hanabi, they were a few feet from the Hyuga estate. Hey, stop for a minute. Naruto asked, pulling lightly on Hanabi's sleeve. She stopped and turned to face him. Damn, he was sexy. She wondered what would have happened if certain people hadn't intruded. In a way, she was sort of glad they did, or else she would have ended up doing something she might have regretted. What? Naruto slid his hands in his back pocket, and hunched his shoulders. This was the first time, as far as he could remember, that he'd ever been nervous. I want to see you again. His face was cherry red. Hanabi bit down hard on her tongue, to keep herself from smiling. He was actually asking her out, and he was nervous as hell. Imagine, the infamous unpredictable ninja, a Hokage hopeful, was nervously asking her out. She wondered what his expression would be if she told him to get lost. Nah, she wasn't that cold. Hanabi moved a few strands of hair from her face. You're looking at me now, right? She smirked. This was sort of fun. His face was turning redder. And not like that, Naruto stammered. He took in a deep breath. He'd never been nervous before, it was disconcerting. If she told him no, he might bash his head in the wall. I mean, I want to take you somewhere. Tomorrow. It was taking a lot of her concentration to keep herself from laughing. Hanabi chewed on her bottom lip for a second. Tell you what. You see that place over there? She motioned her hand toward the Hyuga estate. That's my prison, in all sense of the word. If you can present a valid reason to my warden as to why I should leave, then I'll do whatever you want to do tomorrow. If you can get me out, that is. Naruto thought for a moment, and then sent her a wicked grin that made her heart jump. You have a deal then. And to make it binding. Hanabi in a breath, when Naruto suddenly pulled her towards him and plundered her mouth. Hanabi started to protest, but, After a few seconds, leaned into Naruto and started to kiss him back, with much enthusiasm. When Naruto ran a hand down her back, she pushed away from him, before she lost herself. She looked around, her face red. Thankfully, there was no one on the street. Naruto smirked at her. I'll see you tomorrow. With that, he disappeared in a poof of smoke. Hanabi took in a huge breath to settle her nerves. She had to learn to control herself, or else. But the question she kept asking herself was, would the, or else, part be so bad? She decided that if she was going to do the, or else, part, she had to get to know him first. She walked through the main entrance gate of the estate, her thoughts full of Naruto. She decided to walk around the Branch family when she saw two elders talking in the courtyard. She didn't want to be harassed. Hanabi slowly walked along the outskirts of the Branch family, near the wall to the woods. She wasn't in any rush to see her father. She pushed him to the back of her mind. Just thinking of him was upsetting. She felt the air pressure change and quickly hid in the shadows of the trees lining the wall. Hinata appeared in a swirl of leaves a few feet from where she was. Hanabi wondered where she went. Since she hadn't seen her sister, face to face, in a while, she emerged from the shadows saying, "I smell failure." Hinata spun around and studied her sister. She smirked and said, "You're home early. What? No one wants to rent the whore tonight." The smirk fell off of Hanabi's face. That really stung. Not that she'd let it show. Says the bitch that nobody ever needed or wanted. Hanabi retorted. She eyed her sister with disgust. Is there anything you're good at besides being pathetic? Hanabi didn't wait for her to retort. Don't answer that. Maybe we'll ship you off to some feudal lord in the middle of nowhere. That way we'll never hear about the worthless Hyuga again. They started to circle each other. Hinata glared at her sister. I wouldn't be surprised if that same feudal lord asked for you, knowing your reputation. Haiku says you're impressive on your back. I wondered if he heard that. Could be. Then again, you are public property. Hanabi fingered the kunai concealed under her skirt, on her thigh. Touché, dear sister. Then again, all the unwanted Hyuga band together. I suppose they only have each other to talk to.